My name is Liana Mercer. I'm 27 years old. For nearly 2 decades, my parents called me the weak link, while my sister Clara collected Ivy League acceptances and promises of everything I would never inherit. They laughed at my dyslexia over dinner, shut me out of every family decision, paid me barely enough to survive while funding Clara's future, like she was an investment portfolio. But on the night of Clara's graduation celebration, inside the grand ballroom of the Astor Regency Hotel, with over 300 guests watching, a stranger slipped an envelope into my hand. Inside it was proof that every single thing my parents ever said about me was a lie. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my grandmother had been watching quietly for years. She saw everything, and before she died, she left me something that would tear the entire Mercer legacy apart. The Mercers were old money New York elite, the kind of family whose name was etched into hospital wings, museum halls, and charity galas. My father, Victor Mercer, was the CEO of Mercer Holdings, a commercial real estate empire my grandmother, Evelyn Mercer, had built from a single office in Queens back in 1968. By 2025, the company was valued at just over $105 million. I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 8. Words didn't just sit still on a page. They shifted, twisted, blurred into something unreadable. Simple paragraphs took me 3 times longer to process than anyone else. My parents didn't respond with patience. They responded with disappointment. When I was 13, they hired elite tutors for Clara, piano lessons at Juilliard, private SAT prep with a Columbia graduate charging $450 an hour, language immersion programs in Paris. When I asked for help with reading, my mother, Elaine, barely looked up from her phone. "Liana, we've already spent enough trying to fix this. At some point, you have to accept your limitations." I was 13, and I believed her, so I stopped asking. Instead, I adapted. Audiobooks became my escape. I built my own system, visual notes, diagrams, connecting ideas through patterns instead of paragraphs. And every Sunday, I took the subway uptown to my grandmother Evelyn's apartment. She never treated me like I was broken. She'd sit beside me for hours, explaining complex ideas through stories instead of textbooks. "Leah," she once told me, placing her hand over mine, "you don't see less than others. You see differently, and one day that difference will matter." I didn't understand it back then, not fully, because before I could, I had to survive years of being treated like the Mercer family's quiet embarrassment. Christmas, 2019. 20 relatives gathered inside my parents' Upper East Side townhouse. Crystal chandeliers, catered dinner, perfect smiles. The annual performance of Mercer excellence. My father stood at the head of the table raising his glass. "I have an announcement." The room fell silent instantly. Clara has been accepted into Yale Law School. Full scholarship. Applause erupted. Cheers. Compliments flying across the table. Clara smiled modestly like she'd practiced it. "My daughter," my father continued proudly, "will take this family and this company to the next level." More applause, louder this time. Then his eyes drifted to me. "And Liana," he paused. The warmth in his voice disappeared completely. "Well, she's here too." Soft laughter rippled across the table, awkward, polite, cruel. "And Clara?" She laughed with them. I stared down at my plate, blinking back tears I refused to let fall. Then I felt it. A hand slipping into mine beneath the table. Fragile, warm, steady. Grandma Evelyn. When I looked up, her eyes weren't soft. They were furious. Not at me. At him. She didn't say a word that night. But 3 months later, She called me to her apartment and told me she had something important to show me. I didn't realize it then, but that dinner, that single moment of humiliation in front of everyone, had already set something in motion, something that would take years to explode. I graduated from a state university in 2023. Not Ivy League, never Ivy League. Still, I applied for a position at Mercer Holdings. I wanted a chance, just one. My father hired me as an administrative assistant, salary $45,000 a year. That same month, Clara joined as chief legal officer. Her salary? $310,000 plus bonuses. My job was simple: copies, scheduling meetings, bringing coffee to executives who never bothered to remember my name. I wasn't invited into a single meeting, but I paid attention, and I noticed something. I could see patterns others didn't. While executives argued over deals, I mapped out relationships in my head, how money moved, where risks hid, where things didn't add up. What started as a coping mechanism became something sharper, something powerful. Grandma Evelyn had seen it long before I did. During those Sunday afternoons, she'd spread old contracts across the table, not teaching me how to read them word by word, but how to understand them. "Your father reads contracts like a predator," she told me once. "He looks for advantage." Then she smiled slightly. "You read them like a builder. You see the structure beneath everything." That same day, she handed me a small wooden box, dark mahogany, brass hinges. "Keep this safe," she said quietly. "Don't open it yet." I asked why. She only shook her head. "When the time comes, you'll know." 18 months later, she was gone. Pancreatic cancer. I was the only one sitting beside her when she died. The box stayed untouched in my closet, waiting. April 2025. The email came on a Tuesday afternoon. Subject: position restructuring, confidential. My hands trembled as I read it. My position was being eliminated. Effective June 30th. They were letting me go. That night I stayed late, alone in the office. Through the thin wall separating my cubicle from my father's office, I heard voices, his and my mother's. "We can't keep her here once Clara takes over," he said. "It doesn't look right." "What do you mean?" my mother asked softly. "People will ask questions. Why she's not in leadership. Why she's still like that." A pause. Then my mother sighed. "We tried, Victor. Some people just don't have what it takes." "Exactly," he replied coldly. "We'll give her a severance package. She can find something more appropriate." I pressed my hand against the wall, my chest tightening. After everything, that's all I was to them. A problem to be removed, a weakness to erase. For $45,000 a year. My shared apartment in Queens, 2 roommates, 1 narrow bedroom, cost me $1,950 a month. No savings, no backup plan. If I lost my job, I'd be out on the street within 8 weeks. But the fear tightening my chest wasn't about money. It was something colder, heavier. If I let them do this, if I accepted their version of me, then I'd spend the rest of my life as the failure they'd already decided I was. Not because I lacked ability, but because I was never given a real chance to prove I had it. Clara's celebration was the next evening, and somehow I knew my father had one more announcement planned. May 21st, 2025, the Astor Regency Hotel, grand ballroom, over 300 guests filled the gilded hall. Investors, corporate lawyers, distant relatives with polished smiles and empty eyes. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across silk-covered tables. A live orchestra played softly in the corner. This was Victor Mercer's world, his stage, and tonight He was going to remind everyone exactly who mattered in it. I stood near the entrance, tugging nervously at my dress. Plain black, simple, $85 from a clearance rack. Around me, women shimmered in couture gowns. Men wore tailored suits that probably cost more than my yearly rent. I didn't belong here. My mother made sure I knew it. Liana. Her eyes swept over me, my makeup, my worn heels, her expression tightening. This is what you chose to wear? It's what I could afford. She adjusted the diamond clasp on her bracelet like the conversation bored her. You'll be seated at table 26, near the service corridor. Of course. And Liana? She leaned in, her perfume suffocatingly sweet. Tonight is your sister's night. Whatever resentment you're carrying, leave it outside. Don't embarrass us. She didn't wait for a reply. She never did. Table 26 sat half hidden behind a pillar at the back of the room. My table mates were distant relatives I barely recognized. From where I sat, I could see the stage, a massive portrait of Clara in her Yale regalia glowing under the lights. A banner stretched across the wall. Congratulations, Clara Mercer, Yale Law Class of 2025. And near the entrance, there was a man, silver-haired, gray suit, standing completely still, not eating, not talking, just watching. His eyes locked onto mine from across the room. Something about him sent a chill down my spine. At 8:30 p.m., the music stopped. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. My father stepped forward, glass raised. Ladies and gentlemen. The room fell silent instantly. Tonight, we celebrate an extraordinary achievement. Applause erupted before he even finished. Clara graduated in the top 5% of her class, completed a federal clerkship, and has already secured a fast-track partnership position at Harrington and Blythe. More applause, louder this time. But tonight, he continued, voice swelling with pride, I'm not just celebrating her past. He turned, extending his hand. I'm announcing her future. Clara stepped onto the stage, glowing in emerald silk. Effective immediately, my father declared, Clara Mercer will inherit my entire estate upon my passing. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This includes our residence on Park Avenue, valued at $15 million, my personal assets. He paused. Let the moment stretch. And most importantly, she will assume the role of CEO of Mercer Holdings upon my retirement. The room exploded. Standing ovation. Cameras flashing. Clara dabbed her eyes like she was in a movie. 300 people cheering. And not one of them looked toward table 26. The woman beside me, a cousin I vaguely remembered, leaned closer. So, what does that mean for you? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. What could I say? That I had just been erased? That the termination email waiting in my inbox was only the beginning? That every fear I'd ever had about being worthless had just been confirmed in front of everyone who mattered? The applause faded. Clara hugged our father, and through the crowd, the man by the door started walking toward me, slow, deliberate, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. He stopped at my table. Up close, I could see the sharpness in his posture, the quiet precision of someone used to courtrooms. Miss Mercer. I straightened instinctively. Yes? My name is Daniel Reeves. He handed me a card. Reeves and Carter, attorneys at law. I was your grandmother's legal advisor. The words hit hard. My grandmother passed 3 years ago. I'm aware. His voice didn't soften. She left something for you, with strict instructions on when it should be delivered. From his jacket, he pulled out a cream envelope, heavy paper sealed with red wax. What is this? Her will. He lowered his voice. The one your father doesn't know exists. My breath caught. The notary stamp read October 3rd, 2019, months after she'd given me the wooden box. I don't understand. Your grandmother instructed me to deliver this, he said calmly, on the day your father publicly disinherited you. His eyes flicked briefly toward the stage. I believe that moment just happened. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. What's inside? For the first time, his expression softened, just slightly. She told me to say this. He paused. Give it to Liana when Victor shows her exactly who he is. By then, she'll be ready. Then he stepped back. I'll be available if you need guidance. And just like that, he disappeared into the crowd. I couldn't breathe in that room anymore. I slipped out through the service corridor into an empty hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The music faded into a distant echo. My fingers shook as I broke the seal. 3 pages, dense, legal text. I forced myself to read, slowly, carefully. Then I saw it. One line that changed everything. To my granddaughter, Liana Rose Mercer, I bequeath 51% of my shares in Mercer Holdings, currently valued at approximately $52 million, along with full voting control. I stopped breathing. 51%. Control. The document continued. This decision is made with full awareness of my son's treatment of Liana. She has been overlooked, diminished, and denied opportunity, not due to lack of ability, but lack of support. My throat tightened. Liana is not incapable. She was never given the chance. A tear slipped free before I could stop it. She saw everything. Then came the condition. To activate this bequest, Liana must request an emergency board meeting within 72 hours of receiving this document. Failure to do so will void this will entirely. 72 hours. The deadline, 8:30 p.m., May 24th. I leaned against the wall, heart pounding. This wasn't just an inheritance, it was a weapon. Daniel Reeves was waiting near the coat check when I returned. You've read it. The deadline. My voice trembled. Why would she do that? He handed me another card, this one with a number handwritten on the back. Because she knew you, he said quietly. If you had unlimited time, you might talk yourself out of it. He met my eyes. The deadline isn't pressure. It's permission. To stop waiting for your family to choose you and choose yourself. I glanced toward the ballroom. My father posing for photos. My mother smiling like she owned the night. Clara glowing under the spotlight. If I did this, I would destroy whatever was left of my family. But if I didn't, I would become exactly what they always said I was. Miss Mercer, Reeves said softly, your grandmother believed in you. The question is, do you? I looked down at the will in my hands, at her signature, at everything she'd left me. I'll call you tomorrow, I said finally. We're requesting that meeting. He gave a small nod. She said you would. That night, back in my tiny apartment, I finally opened the wooden box. The hinges creaked softly. Inside, a handwritten letter, an old document stamped 1968, and a USB drive. I picked up the letter first. My dearest Liana, if you're reading this, then your father has already shown you who he truly is. My hands tightened around the page. I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I can protect you now. The letter explained everything. The original founding agreement of the company, a clause my father had never seen, permanent voting rights, undilutable control, and then the final piece. In 2018, my father had tried to strip her power, reduce her control from 51% to 10%. The board rejected him. She never forgot, and she never forgave him. The USB contained proof, board meeting records, evidence, leverage. I stared at the screen as the file loaded. Board minutes, March 2018. Everything I needed was right there. My father's attempt to strip his own mother of power, recorded, time-stamped, undeniable. May 22nd, 9:10 a.m. Margaret Cole answered on the second ring. "Liana Mercer," she said, her voice rough with age and authority. "I've been expecting your call. You know who I am? Your grandmother and I built half this company together. She talked about you more than anyone else." A pause. "She also told me about the will years ago." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Then you know what I'm about to do." "I know what you're considering," she corrected calmly. "There's a difference." Her tone shifted, sharper now. "You want an emergency board meeting? That requires 3 directors. I'm 1. You'll need 2 more. Can you help me?" "I can do better." Papers shuffled in the background. "Victor Mercer isn't as untouchable as he thinks. At least 4 members have concerns. They just need someone to move first." Hope flickered. "Who?" "Daniel Harrow, Elaine Park. Both have had issues with him behind closed doors." She paused. "Liana, this won't be easy. Your father will fight. Your sister will too." "They've been fighting me my whole life," I said quietly. "At least now, I get to answer." Margaret laughed softly. "Your grandmother always said you had steel in you. I see it now." By that night, the petition was filed. Emergency board meeting, May 24th, 10 a.m., May 23rd, 4 p.m. My father found out. I knew because Clara called me less than an hour later. "What did you do?" Her voice was sharp, controlled. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't lie, the board just issued a notice. Margaret Cole hasn't moved on anything in over a decade. What are you playing at?" "Maybe she has concerns about management." "Stop," Clara snapped. "If you're trying to embarrass us, I'm just doing my job." Silence. Then she hung up. 20 minutes later, my father stormed past my desk without even looking at me. His office door slammed. Through the wall, I heard him. "Ridiculous waste of time. She's not a threat. She can barely read a report." I smiled. For the first time in my life, being underestimated felt like an advantage. That night I prepared, printed copies of the will, backups of the board recording, a short statement, facts only, no emotion, no accusations, just truth. Margaret texted at 11:07 p.m. "Filed. See you tomorrow." She'd be proud. I didn't sleep. Not from fear, from anticipation. May 24th, 9:45 a.m. Mercer Tower, 42nd floor marble floors, glass walls, power built into every corner. I stepped out of the elevator in a borrowed blazer and worn shoes. The guard stopped me. "Name?" "Liana Mercer." He frowned. "You're not on the list." "Is there a problem?" Clara's voice behind me. She looked perfect, controlled, untouchable. "What are you doing here?" "I have something to present." She laughed lightly. "About what?" "You work in admin." Before I could respond, "Let her in." Margaret Cole stood in the doorway, calm, unmovable. I invited her. My father's jaw tightened. "Fine," he said coldly. "Let's see how long this lasts." The boardroom was smaller than I expected. 12 seats, 1 long table, and my grandmother's portrait watching from the wall. The meeting began. Margaret stood first. "This concerns a document affecting company ownership." She turned to me. I yield my time. All eyes shifted. I stood. "Thank you. What I'm about to present may surprise you. I ask only that you listen." My father cut in immediately. "This is a mistake. She's not qualified. She has no experience, and she has dyslexia." Clara added smoothly. The room shifted uncomfortably. I didn't react. Instead, I placed the document on the table. This is the last will of Evelyn Mercer, executed in 2019. Silence. My father's face drained. That's impossible. It supersedes the 2015 will, I said calmly. Jonathan Reeves stepped forward. I can confirm its authenticity. Murmurs spread across the table. Then I played the recording. My father's voice filled the room, cold, calculated, trying to strip his own mother of control. When it ended, no one spoke. Miss Mercer, the chairman said slowly, please read the relevant section. I did. 51%. Control. And the reason why? Not because I was better, because I had been denied a chance. By the time I finished, everything had changed. The board recessed. Legal teams verified everything. 45 minutes later, the decision came. The will is valid. Effective immediately. Leanna Mercer is majority shareholder. A sharp inhale somewhere in the room. Then the chairman looked at me. Do you have any motions? I stood. I do. My father tried to interrupt. He was silenced. I propose a vote of confidence in Victor Mercer as CEO. The room shifted. Clara stood. This is a revenge stunt. No, I said quietly. This is governance. The vote was called. 4 hands raised in support, 7 raised against, 1 abstained. No confidence. My father didn't argue, didn't shout. He just looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in my life. And then he walked out. Outside in the hallway, he caught up to me. You did this, he said. I told the truth. You destroyed this family. No, I said calmly. You did that a long time ago. My mother tried to speak. Apologies. Regret. Too late. I'm done proving myself to you, I said, and I walked away. May 25th, my father resigned. The board offered me a position as strategic advisor. I accepted, not for power, for purpose. Weeks later, the story broke. Quietly at first, then everywhere. Investors backed me. The company stabilized. And for the first time, my grandmother's vision was safe. Months passed. Things changed, slowly. My mother apologized, really apologized, not perfectly, but honestly, Clara. She broke too, years of pressure finally cracking. We started over, not as sisters we were forced to be, but as 2 people learning each other for the first time. 6 months later, I moved into my own apartment in Brooklyn, a place with light, with space, with peace. I took on a new role, building a sustainable development division inside the company, something my grandmother would have loved. Sometimes, I still think about that night, the ballroom, the laughter, the moment I was erased, because that moment led me here. I used to think my grandmother left me power, but she didn't. She left me something better, a choice, to become who I actually was, not who they said I was. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been dismissed by the people who were supposed to believe in you, remember this. You don't need their approval to become something more. You just need the courage to stop waiting for it. If this story made you question how many people have been underestimated, don't just walk away from it. Subscribe, because the next story might be the one that changes how you see everything.